All right, so let's go into the domain and the range. So let's go ahead and identify domain. Remember, domain is the X values that create a graph, that create the graph. And there's a bunch of ways we can write a domain. In this case, it's going to be really simple, okay? So what we're looking for, all these X values that are here, that are creating the graph. And what I mean by that is there a graph above it, like there is here? Or is there a graph below it, like there is here, okay? And you'll notice that the domain in this case, there is graph above this section, and there is graph below this section, okay? But the one thing that confuses people is it says, well, my graph only goes from, in this case, -4 to 8, and it only looks like there's graph from about 0 to 4 on the x-axis. Well, if we go ahead and keep working our way out a little bit more, what we'll notice is as we work our way out, the graph just keeps going and 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 going. And what's ending up happening is that we're having the graph show up continuously, and it will continue to do that. There'll be more graph that shows up way, way, way down here, okay? And what that means is, as we're looking for the domain, is that there's graph, here graph is forming, here is creating graphs. And what that means is our domain is essentially going for all real numbers. So we can put that, we can say all real numbers, or we can go ahead and use interval notation, and we can say, well, we know from down here, which is -infinity, all the way up to here, which is +infinity, and we can say all real numbers, and that is -infinity to +infinity. And we're going to use non or undefined parentheses, and I'll keep pointing that, undefined parentheses, because in -infinity and +infinity are not definite numbers. Okay, so let's go to the range. Well, the range in this case, okay, let me scoot back in, is essentially, the range is the Y values. Okay, well, if we come and we zoom right back in this case, we're going to look for the Y values. So Y values. And we start by looking, is there a place where there's a maximum or a minimum? And, you know, one of the things we did in the last video is we found the maximum. And I say, okay, well, the maximum in this case is 4 on the y-axis. Okay, so 4 on the y-axis. And you can see that right there. And if we're going to do this piece, we just need to say, okay, well, if we start at 4 and we look up, okay, if we start at 4 and we look up, there is nothing above there. So nothing. There's no graph. However, if we look down, there's a bunch of graph. And in fact, if we keep going down, there's a bunch of graphs. So this is where the graph is. So the graph is below that red line of 4. So what we're going to say is down here we have -infinity. I'm going to say, well, the range must be from -infinity. And then it goes all the way up to this number right here, which we know is y equals to 4. And I'm going to put 4. Notice what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bracket right here. Okay. And I can also write this as x is less than or equal to 4. I can write either one of those. And there is domain and range.